So there's a couple scars that I have from different times in my life. And the first one is from a time when I was at Disney World. And I don't have a lot of really vivid memories of being at Disney World when I was a little kid, but this one memory just stands out in my mind. And it's not the excitement of going on Space Mountain or an exciting ride or meeting Mickey Mouse. It was one night we had gone to dinner at this hotel, I think, in the animal kingdom, and we had come out after eating dinner and we were walking towards the bus that would take us back to our hotel. And there was this walkway and then this barrier next to the walkway. And on one side of the walkway was a koi pond full of fish. And then on this side was a really rocky road. And being the adventurous child that I was, I decided to use this barrier as a balance beam as I walked. And if you're hoping that this story ends with me falling in the koi pond, you're going to be disappointed. But as I was walking, I thought I was just keeping my balance, and I lost it and fell off of this barrier, knees first, into this rocky path. And I really, really scraped at my knee. Like blood, it probably needed stitches, it was that bad. But we were at Disney, and so I just covered up with my hand. We got on the bus, and we got back to our hotel, and I just held it the entire way. And what I remember, more than the pain that I was experiencing, which was a lot, more than the blood that was coming out of my knee, was on the way back to our hotel, on that bus, I remember sitting next to my mom. I remember her holding me really tightly and just telling me that it was going to be okay. That's the memory that stands out to me. That's the memory I see from that scar, is being held by my mom tightly, telling me everything is going to be okay. So in the Psalms in the Bible, we find language that's used to communicate with God for a variety of situations, for how to worship God in happiness and joy, but also cry out to God in sadness and fear and anger. I find myself going to the Psalms often when I don't know what to say to God, to find language to communicate with Him. And much of the Psalms, we believe David was the author of many of the Psalms. And for somebody who was described as being a man after God's own heart and someone we hold in such high regard, David went through some really difficult things. Think of David had a king that came before him that wanted him dead. David committed adultery with a woman, and then the son that was conceived from that adulterous relationship died. David had a son that rose up against him and tried to have a mutiny, take over power from him. David lived through some really difficult stuff, and we see the language that he uses here in the Psalms to cry out to God during these times of difficulty, of sadness, of fear. And one psalm that I love that really speaks to crying out to God during this difficult time is Psalms 23. I want to read it. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters, and He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for You are with me. Your rod and Your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Verse 4 says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for You are with me. What faith it must take and the trust to have in God that when you're in the valley of the shadow of death, when it feels like nothing can be going right, that you still cry out to God and trust that you can fear no evil, for You are with me. That surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life. In the midst of extreme despair, of death, David cries out to God and recognizes that goodness and love are with him all the days of his life. So the second scar that I got was when I was in 8th grade and we moved to Ohio from Texas. And we lived in this small apartment community. And we really struggled in Ohio. I struggled to make friends. I had moved in the middle of the school year. And it was not a good time for our family. So I was in this small apartment community and was starting to befriend this one guy. And I ended up going over to his house. And he had a boxer, this dog, a boxer, right? And I reached my hand out to let the dog smell me. And instead of the dog kind of smelling me and greeting me warmly, the dog lunged up at my face and took a bite right here. Got a little bit my lip and my nose. I had to get 8 stitches right here on my nose. And I remember it was bleeding, it hurt, but the thing I remember the most was sitting in the back seat of our minivan while my mom drove us as fast as she could to the hospital, and my dad holding me tightly, just telling me, you're gonna be okay, it's gonna be all right. And in that moment of fear and of pain and blood, I really believed him. It was all going to be all right. So I don't know if you've ever been in this room here at GCR before, but this is the nursing mother's room. It's not a room I spend a lot of time in. And this is where moms can come with their babies if they need to be fed, if they are crying during service. And a mom can come in here, take care of their baby, still watch and participate in service. There's something warm and loving about this room. I don't know, this is where babies come and they're taken care of, they're held by their mothers, they feel safe in this place. And it's just a really warm feeling room. As I think back to these moments in my life, these scars that I've had, the thing that stands out to me is that I was really taken care of in those moments, that I was held. In these moments of pain, I felt like everything was going to be okay because someone that cared for me, someone that loved me was there holding on to me, comforting me during that time. And when we're living through times of difficulty or pain, worry, fear, they come up so often in our lives, and we want those times to be over as quickly as possible, right? And things don't always happen on our timing. Sometimes we have to live in those moments of fear and pain, of difficulty for a while, longer than we might like. And it can be really tempting in those times to try to take matters into our own hands, turn away from God and really just take control in those moments. But I know this to be true, that God is working all things out for the good of those who love him. I believe that to be true. I know that to be true. There's this new song out by the guy who wrote Reckless Love, Corey Asbury. And there's a line in that song that after I heard it, it got stuck in my head. And I continue to think about it. And the line says that the story isn't over if the story isn't good. The story isn't over if the story isn't good. And if we believe and know that God is working all things out for the good, that he is turning difficulty and fear and pain and struggle into good, then I have to believe that if I'm not experiencing that at this moment, that if there's pain and difficulty, that God is still working, that he's doing something in my life to grow me, to change me, to work out some good out of that situation, and it might last longer than I want it to. But in that moment, I want to run to God. In your moments of pain and struggle, I want you to run to God, to seek after his embrace. James 4:8 says, if we draw near to God, he will draw near to us. And so I want us to seek comfort from him in times of difficulty, knowing that it's that comfort that's going to help us get to those times of goodness. And so that might look like engaging in with his word, reading scripture, going to the Psalms to find language to communicate with and pray to God. It might mean spending some time just praying to God, or in silence in his presence, listening to words of comfort that he might give to you. Maybe it even means taking some time with someone you love and care about and trust, and being very real and honest with them, knowing that God sometimes speaks to us through other people. So I know that God turns things to the good. I know that that's always what's going to happen, but sometimes I need a little comfort from him during the times where it's not quite there yet. So I like to think of it this way, like imagine right now the feeling of being hugged, of being held by someone. The pressure of that around your body, the warmth of someone else right next to you that you love and care about and that you trust. And I believe that's what God is offering to us. He wants to comfort us in that way. He wants to wrap his arms around us and say, this moment you're in might be difficult and challenging and painful, but I'm working things out for the good, and I'm here, and everything is going to be okay. There's going to be some discussion questions on the screen, and I'd love for you to just take some time and talk through some of those together as a family. That's all I got. I don't know.